Hi, I'm Moses,
I'm Ebony.
and this is the Sit in Your Ship podcast where we walk you through a spiritual awakening. And in this episode, we are actually going to be talking about what a spiritual awakening is.
Yeah, seriously, like that's $1 million question. This, I would say, is very personal for every individual person. As Moses and I were just kind of discussing, prior to us doing this recording, I was like, well, I even struggle with the term spiritual awakening. Sometimes I just want to call it an awakening or just a remembering. So
What makes you fray away from the term like spiritual awakening? Like, why does that seem like a weird one for you?
it's not so much that it's weird, but it's just the fact that you can, for me, the awakening is kind of doing with psychic gifts and such like that. And it doesn't necessarily have to be associated to something spiritual in a sense, right? And just to roll right into it, a spiritual awakening to me or awakening to me is at the core, for my experience, my own psychic gifts coming online, at least in a way that makes me aware. Like I can't ignore it. But like I said in episode 1, to be human is to have psychic gifts. All of us do. So that's why I kind of I don't necessarily want to associate it to being spiritual in a sense, because we're all inherently psychic. But there's a lot of spiritual aspects that have come into play for me during it as well. So, and spiritual is it's just a catch-all for a lot of things, right? So I didn't grow up spiritually. I didn't grow up, in the church either. So I don't necessarily want to be like, oh, and it has to be a spiritual awakening. No, it can just be an awakening, a remembering, a reintegration. There's a lot of things that it can be for you, just where you are in your journey, right? There are some
God,
people that I know that have been psychic forever. They know they are. They don't do shit about it. They don't look into it. They don't research it. They nothing until something comes up where they be like, yeah, right?
yeah.
Or, and then we start getting into again the feelings, emotions, the shadow work, the dark night of the soul, all those types of things that forces them to fully embrace the gifts, right? Where
Yeah.
I was not aware at all. And then I had a dump truck roll me over multiple times that me to gain some, just recognition of it. So it's like that was not my experience of just I've always had it there, right? It looking back now, I can think of, different occasions and times where that might have been this stuff then, right? But
Gotcha.
completely running unconscious about it. I don't know. I'm curious for your thoughts though.
Yeah, no. So, what I'm hearing from you is that you are considering the concept of an awakening to be outside of the context of spirituality, meaning that there is a dormant thing that's inside of me that exists within each of us that has woken up, and suddenly I'm confronted with like a different reality of some kind, or like life is just going on and I'm getting these weird thoughts and images. Is that like an awakening to you?
Yes. Yes.
Gotcha.
Very, very Matrix like. Very Matrix. Lots of
Gotcha.
Matrix. That's my life.
So I think that's right off the bat, like we have a lot of differences in that. And I think because spirituality is so inherently intertwined into the process for me, I think if I had to give myself a spiritual awakening, I grew up in church. I was very good at church. I was a very good pastor's kid. I was a music pastor. I was a youth pastor. I knew how to talk the talk. I knew how to walk the walk, and I was very good at making sense of scripture and stuff like that. So I moved over to Denver and I was trying to figure out who the hell I am. I lost my religion in pretty much every sense of the word, except for this inherent feeling that I was divinely protected. And that was the one thing that just never really slipped away from me. Like I knew there was someone there and I knew they were on my side. And so that for me was how I ran for a few years. Then eventually I ended up going to therapy and reading about codependency habits and tactics. And there was this one specific passage for me that really sparked that like awakening moment. And it just said, you know, when you choose to align your actions to please someone else, you are inherently making them your God. And to me, that moment, it just triggered something in me and I started weeping, like just weeping, sobbing. And it was like a return to God in a kind of sense, but by no means did it mean a return to Christianity as I knew it. It was something completely different because I had embodied something that was relevant and real for me that was inherently spiritual by nature. So that was my moment where I learned how I could reconcile the beliefs that I was raised with versus what am I going to believe now as an adult. So I think even just right there, we have completely different, like worlds different experiences of what the subject we're talking about, you know?
Yeah, we do, but I can still relate to the spiritual part or even, the church, for instance, because the reason why I say I didn't want to start with spiritual because at first what I was experiencing didn't feel very spiritual, right? Per episode one, where I'm over here, like, saying, like, why aren't you married to this person, to like a stranger, like I'm their auntie or something like that, waiting for some grandbabies, which is not the case at all, right? I was just seeing things, feeling things, sensing things, and I just knew something was up. I didn't know exactly what it was, and especially, when those things are happening, you don't necessarily have words for what you're experiencing either. Like, I don't know what this is to even communicate it to anyone, right? Which I can imagine is really difficult, if you are one of those children that are experiencing those as, like, a kid, right? And you don't have a family that's supportive or knows that they are also psychic as well, which found out my whole goddamn family is psychic, and everyone's just put it fucking just mute about it, essentially. So there's that, like, that's a new revelation. So there's therapy there waiting to happen down the line. But, you know, I wanna bounce into the clears, but before I get there, I'll just preface it with this. I was listening to a song from one of my favorite, TV shows. This is a cartoon. Some might call it anime. It's just because, like, this is American made. Either way, it's called Ruby, RWBY. And there was a track that I was just, like, resonating with, so I was just, like, listening it on repeat over and over again. Love it. Nothing new. I've heard it before, but resonating at the time. I'm like, "Okay, going to bed." Turned it off. And then I go to lay down, and then I start hearing this music, and it was late at night, and I'm like, "God damn it, what the fuck is my neighbor doing?" And so I get up and sit up. I'm like, "I don't hear anymore." I'm like, "Eh." I lay back down, I hear this music again. Now the music was like a chorus. It was ethereal in nature. So I'm like, "What is this?" And so again, I get out the bed and I'm trying to track down the source of this sound because I'm like, what is this? Where is this coming from? Right. And so I do have, like, a generator a little ways away, but I'm like, maybe I'm just hearing shit because here's the thing. I started to realize when I started doing more tests, because I'm like, I'm a practical girl, hearing music that I don't hear when I sit up or get out of bed. When I lay down on my pillow, I could hear it. When I sat up in the bed, I couldn't hear it. When I removed the pillow from under my head, I couldn't hear it. So it got to me to thinking like, "Okay, this is a frequency," right? So then I go and cover my ears, and I only really hear it in one ear, and I'm like, "Okay." Now, again, at this point, I already knew there was something going on. I was already working with someone, a business coach, not necessarily like, "Oh, I have a mentor for my awakening," but she was definitely woo-woo, right? And the reason I was working with her because she was a bit woo-woo, and she was also a former CIA agent. So I'm like, I need
Ah,
practical, intangible. Yeah, so
yeah.
make it make sense. And she'd be like, just talk to your guides, just talk to them, ask their names. I'm just like, what? It's hard. It's weird. Like, talking to, right? So I'm hearing this music. I'm like, I guess this is when I asked some names, right? And so I did say, what is your name? The music stopped. And then I got two names at the same time. The names that I got were Gabriel and Ezekiel. And like, obviously. And I'm like, just let me Google the Gabriel and Ezekiel that I think this is the Gabriel and Ezekiel, right? And so I did. And I'm like, okay, okay. And then I asked again. And this time I got the name in what seemed like a dead language. So, Hofstera, and Benzin, which are like way out there. I'm like, what? I can't make these types of names up. They're really far fetched out there for me. And so that would be like the mark of when I really was like, okay, I can't ignore this anymore because like that was very, very profound for me. So, yeah.
I want to ask about that though, because like that is a pretty unique experience that, being in the metaphysical community as we both are, I've heard a lot of stories about this. And I've also heard a lot of stories on the flip side of people just feeling like they're going crazy or feeling like they need to check in on their mental health. Where do you see those boundaries? Where is that line set of like, I'm hearing from God? I need therapy. You know what I mean? Like, where does that exist?
Yeah, I mean, definitely decided to reach out and call my mom, and just explain to her, but and even my friends, and no one would tell me that I was crazy. I mean, I literally started begging for someone to tell me I was crazy. Actually, I was like, "You all are horrible fucking friends. Why won't you tell me I'm crazy?" Because honestly, being told that you're crazy is the easiest solution that you could possibly have during awakening. Just like, "You're crazy," and that just chalks up everything, and it's just like, "Yeah, okay, cool. I don't have to worry about this shit at all." But it's, again, me investigating, me trying to figure out where is that sound coming from, me getting up, recognizing this is a frequency thing, right? I'm looking for the source of the sound. I'm, like, looking at the generator. There's nothing. I'm outside. There is no sounds coming from that thing. I've never heard it before. It's not causing any problems. It's actually a distance enough, right? And I definitely was like, "Oh, maybe it's just the frequencies from that thing. It's affecting me. Now I'm crazy, and I'm also on the top floor. That generator's on the bottom floor. I don't know if it does this type of thing, like, usually it's like this, not so like this." I mean, obviously, frequencies move however they move, but I'm like, that's getting kinda wild. So, again, it's just this practicality that I was bringing to every different situation that I've been experiencing. So even though I was, like, definitely seeking out other people's opinions about what I was experiencing, because I'm like, I'm checking in on my sanity, but because of the way that I was going about it and explaining it and being very practical about it, and that's not what necessarily crazy is. Like, I'm not having any thoughts telling me to do myself any harm.
Yeah.
They're not telling me, you know, something bad is gonna happen to you. Like, there's no, this is very separate from, like, that negative self-talk that your brain can do to you. Like, "You fucked up. You're kinda shitty, aren't you? Why would you do that?" It's never been that. It's never, ever been that for me. So, that's, like, for me, how I navigate between, "You're crazy," even though I wanted to be called crazy. No one was calling me crazy because of the way that I was operating. Like, nothing's changed. My personality wasn't changing. Nothing's changed there. In some instances, because I was overcoming shyness, the thing was like, oh, now I have people that I can go and talk to about it that I feel comfortable and safe. Now it's a huge thing.
Yeah.
And again, when I found out that clear audience specifically, because that's what this is when you're hearing things like that, is directly connected to the throat chakra. And my throat chakra had been blocked like my entire life. And I was finally overcoming that. And so now it makes a lot of sense why that would come online. I've been musically inclined. Most people that are very strongly musically inclined will be clairaudient.
Gotcha. That's something that I did not know. But what I will say is like, I think it's a pretty safe boundary box when you are experiencing something that does not meet up with the physical lens of reality. I think it's just good to put it out there of, is this information coming through for your best and highest purpose? Is this information trying to get you to harm yourself physically, spiritually, emotionally? If so, we don't want to listen to it. We want to seek immediate help. But if that voice is coming through and it provides clarity, if it provides a sense of purpose and a sense of knowing, or even if perhaps it's just a random noise that you can't hear, I think we can say, would you say that it is spirit trying to come through for this person?
Blanket statement, say yes, 1000% sure, but definitely leans towards that. Just hearing that process, like, I'm going through a process of elimination, right, is important when you're first experiencing those things. And, not too long after that, I started hearing other names and such like that. I was drowning, like, a lot of this was not in English. These are not English terms that started coming through for me, so I'm like, "What is this?" Like, there's just, like, make believe, made up words that are popping up in my head, I don't understand, and at that point, it was still just words here and there, where at this point, this is full-blown conversation, you know? When it comes to people that are clairaudient, when I hear like, finding and researching people that are actually clairaudient is very difficult. It's actually a bit more rare than you hear about people being clairvoyant, which is clear seeing, either with your eyes or in your mind. So either you're seeing something with you're like, I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, or you're seeing something like that's so Raven style in your head.
Siren, we're gonna get sued. But no, I can connect with a lot of that. And I think that we're talking about two very different sides of a spiritual awakening or a awakening coin, which is one, awakening through conscious integration and awakening by circumstance and chance, where the universe says, get fucking ready. It seems like you and I got thrusted into very different experiences of that. But I would also say that we are very different in terms of our gifts and how we navigate them. Now, I think one of the thing that drives me nuts about like just embracing what's happening and embracing like an awakening, embracing is this whole psychic conversation and this like I see this way and I see that way. And oh, the Archangel Gabriel communicates me between the hours of 2 and 4 p.m. There's a part of me that's just, and not you, my friend. I've seen your gifts in action. I know what you do, but it's like, get over yourself. You're not shit. Do you know what I mean? I like how you humanize it that everyone is psychic because really, I think the biggest turnoff from this community is everyone's got big talk, but then no one's willing to bite. You know what I mean? No one's actually got that punch or that bite or the show up. And I've had the luxury of meeting with a few psychics, mediums, people who do it incredibly well. And not only that, it's like divinely inspired on time for me to hear the message that I needed to hear in my life. And that has been where I find the meat. But how did you kind of navigate this area of like, am I psychic? What does it mean for me to say this? Am I trashing my reputation? Am I making a bad move? Is it okay for me to embrace this? What was that like?
Yeah. So honestly, I would tell you that I actually embraced the term psychic medium in 2024.
Gotcha. So
And
it's new
this
for you.
it's still new. That's me embracing the term. This situation happened in the year 2022, in June
Mm,
2022. Like I said, I was already having some experiences, but nothing so profound as that. Where like, oh, okay, that's I don't know how to just keep going on with that one, Like, it's been like, here's that thing, here's that thing. And I'm like, oh, go. Yeah, okay. Right. So what ended up happening for me, because I'm experiencing this, and the only person I talked to about it initially was my mother and another good friend of mine who even introduced me to tarot and oracle cards when I first moved to Denver. She's like, do you want a reading? I'm like, yeah, sure. And we met through work. And it just so happened that she was also from Illinois, from Chicagoland, just like me. So, we spent a lot of time together just kind of in these kind of conversations already. So I trusted her and I knew I could express those things to her because she was already like open to it. Right. Now, my mom was a wild card. Didn't know, but I'm like, and like Aunt to my mama, don't know what else I could do. Right. With that being said, it got to a point where I was hearing things and I'm like trying to Google stuff and I'm just like, I can't do this. Like I can't Google my way through trying to get these answers and such like that. And so I literally was speaking out loud and saying, like, I need someone that is here and accessible that I can talk to at any given time. Not someone that I need to go and pay for and get a spiritual mentor, because I wasn't, again, I was working with a business mentor. I knew I wanted to have my own business. And so I was working on my own confidence and like, getting into that. But that wasn't the role for her at the time. And so guess what? Asking you shall receive. And I end up meeting a friend that I already knew, I met in passing in a pretty interesting situation already. It was like a night out. I was still pretty new here, right? And so we crossed paths again, and he was Yoruba faith, and he was also what my guides would say now, like he is a shaman, regardless if he has or hasn't gone through the full initiation process of what that faith specifically determines that you must do in order to be officially a Babalawa, right? But ultimately, I know I'm throwing some terms out here, but
Yeah,
ultimately,
I'm like,
that's what
I'm
they
just gonna
saw.
nod my
Yeah,
head.
just think of him as a priest, as a shaman. That's what he is. And so when I had any instance of something that I don't understand, he just like, right, another Virgo, and he's making it make sense. And I'm just like, did you have to? Like,
We
this
love a
is real.
Virgo for making it make sense. But I hear you. So we're talking about, I mean, just 2024 really becoming comfortable with the word psychic. At what point did you start becoming comfortable with like the clairs or understanding what they are?
I was already getting exposed to the clairs prior to that particular event when I was hearing things. So I had signed up for, actually, I take that back. It was a little later. It was a little later. So there was this woman, she called herself like an intuitive empath. So she was a coach and she was coaching on these things. So not only was she talking about the different clairs, but she was also kind of talking about the chakras as well, which I still haven't tapped into chakras. Who knows why? There's a lot of things that have been like just hit with all at once. And so I can only learn so much all at once. And so I'm slowly making my way to the chakras, but they come up, right? And so she had us use pendulum to get messages for yes and no's, right? And having us practice just reading the energy of people. It wasn't necessarily like this is a psychic gift or anything like that. It was just, let's just see what's coming up for you in these group sessions. Now, I did not know at the time that is a practice circle for being psychic, a safe space where you can practice with others with your gifts. So she was guiding us in this. So anyone who was already doing this, they already had a feeling. So I always knew that I was an empath. An empath just, into like, I feel you. You feel me? I feel you. I feel you. Now, when I say I was able to feel these things, it wasn't a strong, overwhelming, I'm drowning in the feeling, right? I wasn't at a point where I would feel someone so strongly and it would like ruin my day. Or like if I'm watching something on TV, they're crying immediately, I'm crying. Right. It wasn't that type of struggle, I guess. Like as far as like it was here instead of here. So I had practiced with that. And I'm like, okay, it got me more comfortable, with the intuition and such like that. Later on, when I was gifted the astrology reading in the end of 2023 was when I was told I should be a professional diviner. And that is when a psychic medium popped into my literal Instagram stories. And that's when I found out that I was a psychic medium.
Gotcha. Okay. So, what are the clairs? And let me take a stab at this. So, the clairs for me, if we're saying that all humans are psychic, then that means that fundamentally everybody has some sort of aspect of clair something, whether it's clairvoyance, clairaudience, clair whatever. Everyone's got some of them. How do you start recognizing these and what are they?
Yeah. Oh, obviously, we talked about clairaudience. Clairaudience, you can hear like these high pitched ringing noise, and some people it can be, and I'm like getting into the medical realm of this as well, because some people just do hear ringing in their ears. Like there's someone I was like, oh, do you hear these things? I'm like, wait, you literally were using a machine gun regularly, didn't have hearing protection all the time. So you probably don't. You probably don't. It might not be fully trusted, right? It needs to be a very clear sound and noise. Some people hear like a yell and like that's it. Some people just get this like ring in there. So that's a little bit of clairaudience. But like I said, like for me, it was like the first thing I recognized like names coming through in music from another realm, you know?
Yeah,
Well,
I
blah, blah,
get
blah
you.
for that. So,
No,
oh,
I can say for me, one of the ones that stands out is clairvoyance. And, I always have a hard time with the word see because people use it very differently. Sometimes I'll go to a psychic medium and they say, "Oh, I see someone standing behind you." Creepy, first of all. Thank you very much. But two, it's like, okay, if I'm doing tarot or if I'm like doing an astrology reading, I think it's natural for me and it's not something I think twice about to just have an image pop into my head because I'll get the image before I get the words for that image. And then I can start putting words to what I'm seeing. And it's like that one image just really represents an abstract train of thought for me, right? So it's not about the actual image that I'm seeing. Usually it's like painting the picture or creating a metaphor to describe this person's experience. But some people are very fucking literal. Like I've had some people tell me that they're in touch with my past lives. I've had some people tell me that, oh, well, this is the spirit of your departed so and so. And for them to say they're seeing it, that's where I'm like, but what type of see? Is it in your brain? Are you seeing an image in your head? Are you dead ass telling me that you are seeing someone like right behind me? That doesn't make fucking sense to me. And I know people claim that they have it. I don't want to argue or disagree with the fact that these people have it. I don't know where I'm going with this. I'm just mad about it. I'm just mad about it. I don't know why, but I think
goodness.
my connection to clairvoyance has just always been like the mind's eye. And elaborate, take over from here because it's all new to me.
So clairvoyance absolutely came in very strongly for my mind's eye first and foremost, right? And so for me, it's not so abstract. It's definitely like a movie reel playing. So it's a clear image, right? But we all interpret images differently. Now, sometimes when it comes to work like this mediumship aspect, when someone else is coming through, sometimes it's just a flash of an image. It can be abstract and they're trying to paint this picture because this is the way that spirit is communicating with them. As a psychic, like your psychic medium specifically, the best way is to try to use all of your clairs to get a full picture of it. So the clairvoyance, the clairaudience, the claircognizance, which is clear knowing, clairsentience, which is clear feeling, I'm like looking, make sure I got it all. Clear tangency, clear touching. There's a clear smelling, which is clear salience. Clear
So you're
gustance,
telling
which is
me
clear
that like
tasting.
people feel things that aren't there and people
Oh yeah.
smell and taste things that aren't there?
Mhm,
Okay,
mhm,
gotcha. So
1000%.
not arguing with it, but I'm always like, this is where it gets to me. Okay. And apparently, this is Ebony's classroom episode. If we do an astrology episode, I'm going to have you cooked. Cooked. I'll be ahead on that one. But
Yep.
this one is all you. So, my question is really like, okay, great. I smelled some roses. Now what? Do you know what I mean? Some of those aspects where I'm like, what is the purpose or the point outside of delivering a message, getting a psychic reading? I guess it's hard to say what's the point of me smelling this when you just smell it, or when you feel it or taste it or whatever it is. But it's just like, okay, now what? What do I do with this information?
Yeah. So some
Sorry,
of the other
big
things.
question.
No, you're good. Yeah, big question. Listen, I was like, I asked the same questions. Let's just not think that I was just like, oh yeah, I'm in full acceptance of this. I've been freaking out the entire effing time. The
Yeah.
entire time. And I still have like, I'm always like this, right? And the thing that I've just gotten to a point is to not try to sit and ask. I still kind of ask a bit of why at times, but not the how. And just accept that it's just is. We inherently have these things, right? And so, kind of getting back to the clairvoyance, if I'm able to see, let's say, I'm getting an image and I can, see like a family member or something like that. I get an image like on a lake at a log cabin. That's me bringing up information about a family member from the past that was to communicate with you. So this gets into like, evidential psychic mediumship, right?
Yeah.
And not just like, do you know someone that I hate who went to school with you? Oh, I'm sure you do,
Oh my God, you're
right?
so right. I do know her. You're right. No, I get you. Yeah.
Right. So with the clairvoyance specifically, yeah, you can see with your eyes, which is, I'm seeing more of that. That's more coming online because I don't want to see any ghosts. I've been like, that's a strong, firm role that I've had. So you can absolutely set boundaries too
Yeah.
as well. So I'm kind of opening up that door a little bit more to see with my eyes, right? So one of the more abstract things I saw I had actually just got done with one of my like being in a practice circle, psychic medium practice circle, and I had a friend come over for a reading. So this was a time when I was just doing readings just with like friends and family. I'm not putting it out there for anyone. So they came over and so I'm in this space already. And so I'm using tarot as that tool that I'm using. And all of a sudden I was like talking and then I couldn't see in my place anymore. Like it went dark and I saw this image and it was kind of like this dark outline. And then I realized, like the little like twin emojis where the little like rabbit ears type thing. Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
saw, but like an outline of that. So spirit tries to get messages either way it can. That makes sense for you. So that's more abstract, right? And so then when I'm expressing this, and we were actually talking about this man's family, and we were talking about his aunt. He's like, well, he has twins. Like his aunts are their twins. So I was like, huh, okay. I would have never guessed that. That's what came up. That's what came through. Now, neither one of them are passed or on the other side, but that's just how Spirit was like, there's two women, two aunts. They're sisters. They're twins, specifically. So just for some reason that needed to come up and that's where the conversation evolved. That was prevalent. So that was spirit coming and saying, oh, talk about this. Even though I was doing a tarot reading, I would have never come through. I'm like, oh yeah, you have a twin auntie. Yeah, that would not come through the cards. It just
Yeah.
wouldn't. Right. So just depending on the way that spirit communicates with you, if you're depending on what your gifts are, what you're open to, what your primaries are, and what your secondaries are, which you can work on all of these. That's why for you, it could just be more abstract. Like you're creative, you're an artist. right?
Yeah.
And maybe that you just need that little spark and then like you create, the full story that way for yourself. Whereas other people, like, I need it literal as fuck, or I'm just like, what the fuck is that?
Gotcha.
Not gonna do anything with it. I'll dismiss it. My guys know make it make sense, or just like, yep, ignoring that, whatever, and I will.
Yeah.
It's a thing. So they just, make it so that you can interpret in the way that is unique for you. Does that make sense? Does that answer the question? I feel like going on and on.
Yeah, honestly, I think so. I think it's pretty relevant to say that spirits are going to try to work with you in a way that you can understand. It is just about learning the communal language in between and being able to apply meaning to some of these seemingly random things that you go through. I think it's very clear just through the lens of premonition. How many times do you have a premonition that something's going to happen that actually changes the way that you approach the situation, just on the basis of a gut feeling? I think that there are some more applicable ways of looking at it too through this lens of like, okay, so I'm seeing things through my mind's eye or visually, I'm hearing things. Perhaps this is a way for me to understand that my reality is fundamentally different than I thought it was. And you just start there. Shit. I obviously not everyone in the spiritual community has the same belief system as me. Not everyone has to have this strong belief system to approach it. I feel like it's important if you are getting paid to be a psychic medium, a reader, etc., to understand the morals and ethics behind it. But it certainly doesn't mean you have to come from a religious or spiritual background. It just means that you have to speak your truth. And it just means that you have to speak what's coming through that you've learned to work with, or to learn to work with your tools and also understand that you are human and fallible. And if you make an oopsie, it's okay. You on to the next one. You learn how to work with it, and getting the ego out of the way of that process is really what liberates a lot of it.
Yeah, the ego is the key thing, and to elaborate on how the ego comes into play, I had tarot cards that I picked out with this mentor that I mentioned for about 6 months before I actually used them with anyone, because I was so afraid that someone's gonna ask me about love, and, I was still dealing with a breakup, and it wasn't just, like, this breakup, I was just really evaluating all my past relationships, right? I really wanted to understand what is the pattern here, because like I'm tired. Like I'm tired of this. No more, right? And so I wasn't in a place to start talking about love because I'm like, eh. So
Yeah.
how can I realistically do a reading that's not biased on my opinions coming through? It gets really difficult until you learn how to push aside your shit and just allow the messages to come through. Right. And so that's where you start getting into people talking about ego death.
Yeah.
It's your personal experiences not being projected on other people,
I think that's a
which,
really important point, but I think it's really important to say that because the thing is your ego is where I, so much of our bias lives. Like our conscious bias exists in ego. And obviously, there are unconscious biases that can impact the message we deliver. But here's the thing, if we're saying that the spirit is going to speak with you in a way that you can understand, that means it's going to use language, context, stories, it's that you can relate with. But fundamentally, if you are not doing your inner work, you're not understanding how your actions impact other people, you're not understanding the larger societal context of who you are in your culture, your messages can be incredibly biased because of your own lack of lived experience, your own lack of understanding how you're reading or how your abilities can impact other people. So there's just a lot of dangerous ground to tread within that, which means that this process of like self undoing, of letting yourself step to the side and just speaking what's honest and true to come out is incredibly important. And look, I say it all the time. When I'm doing astrology, I tell people, look, I understand these the way that I understand them, but they can show up a bajillion different ways. However, can be relevant for you. I will do my best to interpret some of this, but it's like trying to predict every aspect is just not always practical, right? So there's part of that which just says trust the message that you're given, and they're going to hear it the way that they hear it for a reason and for a purpose, even if it's not making sense to them. Or there's the aspect that's saying, oh, you're totally in your ego and your biases are showing actively. And that's where
Mhm.
we have to sort of peel back. If I'm telling every single woman that she's an agent of the divine feminine, like, is that true? Yeah. Am I saying it because she's a woman? That's something I have to check because it could be my own bias coming in. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because divine feminine shows up and doesn't matter what your actual gender is. This is just an aspect of, we can talk about Luna, the moon, or, Sol, the sun. The sun could represent like the masculine, and, the moon can represent the feminine. But at the end of the day, they're just descriptions of details, right? Our inner world and then our outer world. And our world being our feminine, our intuition, ruled by the moon, our emotions, whereas divine masculine is the external, the sun, how people view and see us. And that's very simplified, but that is it at the core. And then obviously have
Exactly.
all these other planets that come into play, period, that like, throw in other things. But, when it comes to like this one consciousness, higher self, it's kind of focused on the divine feminine and the divine masculine being melded together, right? When we think about our left brain and right brain, they'll say like, oh, well, you're only using 10% of that one side of your brain. Well, that's because it's what's being measurable based off of the scientific facts that we follow today. But we know there's plenty of psychics that they see, like, things are lighting up that aren't necessarily lighting up all the time, right?
Yeah.
And so we use both and it's up to each of us individually to learn how to integrate both and. We are not supposed to be logic only and just disregard everything else, push down our feelings, compartmentalize, make it happen, make it work, do these things. That's to your detriment because feelings do have a physicality to them. Emotions have a physicality to them. We say depression, right? May
Yeah.
show up in different ways, joy, like, tears of joy is a thing.
Well, I think that just takes it back to this idea of like our society has historically ruled out anything that cannot be measured, and we've done it to our own detriment. And so part of dipping your toes into the psychic realm is knowing that you have to start trusting the things that are unseen or the things that may not make sense in the rational. So, part of reclaiming the unseen, the unspoken, the inner vision, and your own inner truth is rejecting this idea that these other parts can't exist. Yeah, I think it's just as easily said as that because we've gotten to a point where the truth is so subjective and facts don't mean shit anymore. All you have to do is look at the headlines in the news from one station to the other, and the facts just don't fucking make sense. Fact checkers aren't fixing it. Fact checkers aren't fixing it because then there's another set of fact checkers that are looking at it and they disagree and this and that and that. So the truth has
Yeah,
become relative even in objectivity right now. So it's like for my own peace of mind, I have been learning to like trust inner truth more than what I'm being told is true. And I think that sort of embrace of metaphysics is happening more and more to more people.
I agree with this. I was definitely a heavy news watcher. I grew up watching the news as a kid. And I feel fortunate that at the time when I was watching news, it was truly pretty unbiased. So I know good. unbiased news. And plus, maybe just because I've always just had some like inherent knowing, right? Even though I wasn't consciously aware. But when the truth was being spoken to me and when it was like, I don't know about this. With that being said, it's more and more important for people to show up authentically. You hear people talking about being on social media, like, be your authentic self. But we also have that aspect of other people's opinions that have been weighing down on us since birth, honestly. And a lot of people don't even know that they're not being authentic to themselves. And they don't even know what it means to trust their own intuition because it's been pushed down, because they're told how to think. They're told how to feel. And they're told if you feel anything different, something's inherently wrong with you. Or if you don't do things a certain way, you're not a productive member of society. And it's extremely limiting. So when you're getting into these other psychic gifts coming through, like clear knowing, so that's the bit of your intuition, your gut. I just know, maybe here's something like, oh, your ears were ringing. You were thinking about me. Something told you that you needed a call. I was just thinking of you. Are those coincidences? Trust and believe I struggle with. There's no such thing as coincidences. Okay, I hated, rolled my eyes all the time. My mentor has said that to me. I'm like, oh, stop this, right? But after it happening 5,000 effing times and being smacked in my face over and over again with coincidences, there's no such thing as coincidences. 1,000% true. Once you allow yourself to see the signs. I'm not saying every single thing that happens in your life is a sign and it needs to be tied to some divine timing, some divine significance. No. But there are certain things that you will notice, you have noticed, there's a pattern, and either you're, oh, that was interesting and moving on with life, which I've done plenty of times, or you're like, wait, hold on, pause. This feels familiar. There's something here, right? And that's when I kind of get into like that matrix type of vibe. There's something out there. I don't have words for it. I don't know what it is, but I know it's there. Even when they started talking about the first version of the Matrix, they said they made everything perfect and happy and wonderful. You know?
Yeah.
Everything's beautiful and rainbows and butterflies. And they said it was a complete and utter failure. Because we know life isn't like that. That's why you and I aren't those living light always and positive thinking only. Because as soon as you have a bad thought, the shit's gonna fucking come true. And it's not like that. It's just not. Like, live in the world of reality. Shit does fucking happen.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just life. We're in a human experience. There's a lot of things happening around us that we have no control of. We can only control our own emotions, our own feelings, and how we interact with other people with our own emotions and feelings.
Yeah.
And this is my like really wild out there belief is that if we all sit and deal with our own feelings and emotions and not project our BS upon others, that's how you get peace on it. Because you are now peaceful inside and you're not spreading it onto the next person, right? Like, I'm having a shitty day and I'm taking it on this person who takes it on that person who takes it on that person. And now it just spreads like wildfire.
Yeah.
Until you come against me and I'm like, yeah, that's your shit. That's not mine. Fix shit.
I think, part of what this reminds me of is just we gone. It's not even the Adderall. I don't even take Adderall. That's the honest truth. They were just trying to get rid of my magic.
I mean,
But what I can say is that it rings very true with this like conversation about being in the matrix. Are we brains in a jar? Is this really real? Are we in a simulation? All of these questions are questions that we really can't answer. But here's the thing. it does make a damn compelling argument for trusting yourself before you trust external stimuli. You know what I mean? Like trusting your own knowing, trusting your own sense of what is right and what's true is really the only thing that we are well equipped to do in this lifetime. And so, my advice to anyone would just be listen to that voice, listen to that discernment, learn to trust your own instincts. Usually, it's every time I didn't trust my own instinct that shit went bad. And so it's like developing your abilities, your gifts, your knowledge, your intuition, all of these things come in alignment with you learning how to trust yourself. And that means, like Ebony said, getting rid of your own shit that's in the way, that's blocking you, your own projection. If I can't trust that this person in the room is even real, according to philosophy, then that's even more reason for me to make this about myself and what I should be fixing. I do
Almost that's so
believe,
selfish though. That's selfish for you to be just focused on you, right? Like that's so bad. That's another thing that people will say, like, oh, you don't have time for me. Oh, you're focusing on you, you're healing you. You've been showing up with me. This is the other aspect of that people pleaser, because I want you to speak on this because like I know that's so strong, especially when it comes to someone who's awakening and they find out they have this voice that wants to come out and they've just been pushed down. I know both of us can relate to this, but
yeah,
I know
yeah,
you can speak on that very strongly.
be fucking selfish. Be selfish. Be selfish. Here's the thing, we are not in a period right now where opinions are scarce. And here's the thing, I think that this idea that selfishness is bad comes from like very Puritan ideals, one, but two, it comes from a place where society was in lack. It was bad to be selfish because there weren't resources. And certainly, if there are points and places where there are not resources, as there are plenty in our world right now, then yeah, it's a damn bad thing to be selfish. But for the majority of people listening here, you are in the US of A, and it is very fucking clear that there is no shortage of anything except respect. But what I can say is like this idea that you're selfish and selfish is bad. No, selfish is the thing that saves your life. Selfishness is the instinct that gets you to dodge the incoming vehicle. Selfishness is the instinct that allows for your survival. That's why we have selfishness built into us. And to just demonize that entire thing makes you so complacent in other people getting their way and other people being selfish and other people being in charge and other people being in power. Meanwhile, we're still like spinning our gears trying to figure out if we're a good person or not. Someone who's already been selfish, who doesn't give a fuck if they're not a good person, has already made moves and gained the power that you sought to have. And it's not all about power, right? Like it's not just to rest there, but it's this idea that we think twice, we lose our chance, we lose our opportunity, we stall and delay while other people who come from a more uninformed place are going to be taking that spot. And perhaps they're just looking after their own wallets. Perhaps they're just looking after themselves to begin with. We need more selfless people to step up and to be heard and to know their truth and to like ride with it, to fuck with it, to understand it so deeply that they can't be gaslit out of having their opinion, you know? And that was it for me was like, oh, turns out I'm just waiting for everyone else. I'm waiting for everyone else to tell me what to do, but nobody's giving me a response that's like up to par. So why am I not just doing this? You know?
Moses has spoken.
Yeah. Be
It's
selfish. God.
like commandments. I fully agree with everything you said. And I would love to come up with another word, right? Because the word feel icky for me. And ultimately, I had to go within, and I had to be quote unquote selfish. I was called selfish from my ex when it turns like really he was just projecting. I was actually very giving, very supportive, and they just wanted more and more and more. Anytime I just try to work on me a little bit, it's like, oh, you're selfish. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't call this selfish, but okay. And even though they would absolutely, whatever they want has to be the priority, they're not calling themselves selfish though. And so you can see, who are you getting your judgment from? Who are you getting your advice from?
Mm.
Sometimes when you're getting the advice from, even from your best of friends, especially during awakening, you have to take what resonates and leave out the rest. Even when it comes to people you choose to work with, even like coaching, right? Like if it doesn't resonate, even when we're doing the readings and such, hey, by all means, I'm speaking my truth. I'm letting you know, I'm informing you. If it doesn't fully fit and resonate for you at the time, you could throw it away, right? More than likely, I'm pretty sure for Moses and I, though, when we're giving you your readings, like it's there. It's a thing. But as far as general advice and such like that, definitely when you know that there's still people that you're communicating with that still need to go through an ego death. They're still really struggling. You have to be very, very careful about what you're taking in and receiving as gospel and truth that is good for you. So, yeah.
Honestly, amen on that one, because here's the thing. You can usually tell when the advice doesn't sit right, or you can tell when something just doesn't feel right for you. And I think if there's one thing to take away from that is from this entire episode, it's that trust that feeling. Trust that
Telling
feeling.
that.
No matter when, where you get it, trust it, dive into it, because you're on a path of becoming closer to your true self. And that's where the magic of your spiritual gifts awaits.
Beautiful. Good old Clairsentience. That's our main thing that most of us feel. That kind of falls into the clear feeling. Like, I feel you. I feel this. And how does it feel in my body? Right? Or if I'm feeling other people and like someone says, I'm good. And they're fucking lying.
Hmm.
Those are some obvious things, right? There's other people. So like another kind of like honorable mention, Claire, that can fall in between this clear feeling, clear sentience, is clear empathy, is empathy. And that is just understanding the emotion behind the words. I would say the empathy is more so for other people and not so much like for yourself.
Yeah, I
Feeling
agree.
could be like the physical. Clear sentience like the physical feel, like, oof, I felt that in my body when you said that shit. Like, oh my God. Right. And then it kind of gets hit with the clear knowing as well. I know that is truth. So you're already using both and to solidify something in your body.
Yeah.
So there's that clear cognizance, the clear knowing, the clear feeling. All of these things allow you to make informed decisions. And it's just allowing yourself to feel that. Because there's plenty of us, almost all of us, I would say, conscious or unconscious, have heard, felt, sensed something that said, no, don't do that. No, don't do that. Nope, you're going the wrong way. Don't be with that person. Don't take that job. This money isn't worth it. Don't, whatever. Or like, but it's anyway. And it was a mistake.
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh my God, the world is horrible, blah, 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 blah. It's random. You had a sign and you chose to ignore it. And you need to send your shit because that was your choice. And no one, for the most part, made you do it.
Nope. Yep.
And
I
then
think,
there's the blame game that comes into play. Like, I
yeah,
want to blame all these other people for blah, blah, blah. And I was like, hey, you did that too. You were part of
that's,
that.
yeah. Yeah. Like, I think that usually those moments where you have that sudden feeling, if you really sit with that feeling for long enough, there's a whole damn book coming out of that. There's at least a couple of paragraphs of information that you're feeling in that moment. So, 9 chances out of 10, it's not a decision that has to be made instantaneously. It's not like you're having to wonder if it's spiritual good to save a child from drowning. You just fucking do that. It's the moments that you still feel that sense of urgency or that pull, and you choose to ignore it. That's my biggest issue is like, yeah, you can't expect it to go right if it doesn't feel right. And unfortunately for us, we can't just shut off our emotions, not very well, anyways. So,
Then no.
but, well,
But
I think that hearing your side of it, we're really more similar than we are different in all of this. And I think, regardless if you're coming from a spiritual background, if you're coming from a Christian background or a religious background, wherever you're at, just know that there's more than one way for this to start. But the fact that you found this video tells me you're exactly where you need to be.
even though we obviously came, you know, to meet at this conjuncture, we came from very different directions, right? Very different life experiences. But here we are, and we're still sharing the same things. Although there's like, oh, I don't have all these experiences. I'm trying to understand why. It's like, trust, I was slowly right there too. So it's just my gifts and where they've been dragging me. 'Cause I've been dragged. Not every spiritual awakening is just like, "Oh, take your time with it," which if you have that luxury, by all means, do it. My guys just aren't doing that for me. I've been pushed off a cliff, and sometimes I'm able to hold on to something just for a little bit, and most of the time, it's just, like, me falling down and, like, on to the next triggering experience, gift coming online that I'm trying to integrate in my body and not lose my shit over. So you're okay. You're not the only one. You're not alone. I just wanna make sure that, everyone knows that because it can be quite jarring just depending on your overall life experience and where at what point you are starting this journey. But ultimately, I wouldn't change it for the world as much as I'm like, all my emotions going all over the effing place, right? It's been the most humbling and most life fulfilling thing because it's made me find what my true self is, what my authentic self is, and I'm still learning to integrate all of that because one, I would have never known that I was a fiery motherfucker because I was so, so, so shy that it hurt to speak. And fiery Mercury placements, fiery Mars placements, and I'm shy and introverted, there's something that just starts to bubble up within. And that's what my awakening was through just little steps of allowing myself to face fears and go after deep desires that would make me have to do a lot of work and be very uncomfortable and cause my body to physically shake in the process. But ultimately, I knew there was something I deeply desired, and I needed to overcome it to feel satisfied with myself in my life. That's my
It's
piece.
beautiful. Well, guys, that has been your episode of the Sit in Your Shit podcast. My name is Moses. I am joined with Ebony Venice, and we'll see you next week.